Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cartoon Crossroads Columbus 2021. It's been a bit. It has been a hot minute since we've all been in the same place like this. So thank you, everybody, for coming out to the festival this weekend. Cartoon Crossroads Columbus is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that relies on the support of grants, corporate donations, and individual donations. And I want to thank some of our sponsors who are making this festival possible this weekend. And there they are up on the screen. And we also couldn't do this without our partners. I don't know if you've noticed this, but the whole darn town celebrates comics on Cartoon Crossroads Columbus weekend. And so the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library and Museum, the Columbus College of Art and Design, where there's going to be events happening today, the Metropolitan Library, where we are now, Wexner Center for the Arts, Columbus Museum of Art. Thank you so much to all of these different partners who help make this festival possible. And Cartoon Crossroads Columbus, let me start over again. Cartoon Crossroads Columbus acknowledges that the ancient ancestors of the Eastern Woodlands tribes, now referred to as the Adena and Hopewell cultures, inhabited the land we know as Ohio. Their descendants include the living nations of the Shawnee, Miami, Wyandot, Delaware, and Seneca Cayuga. We honor and respect the diverse indigenous peoples connected to this place where we gather. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Rachel Miller to talk about, the Eightfold Path. And let me get to that deck. There we go. Rachel. You got this?
Yeah, I guess I will hunch over this microphone as well. Hi, everyone. Welcome. And welcome to our team. This is the crew that put together the graphic novel Eightfold Path, which will be out next year from Abrams, Megascope, curated by John Jennings. So can you guys welcome them for me this morning? All right, so how many people do we have on the stage right now? This is insane.
This isn't even everyone.
I know.
There's actually more artists on it.
Yeah, we still have other artists who weren't able to make it, but yeah, I guess I just want to start with the project itself, and maybe Bryan, you're the best person to kind of talk about this, but could you fill us in on what the Eightfold Path is and how this project came about?
Yeah, definitely. Can you guys hear me well? Cool. Thank you. So it's under, okay, let me start from the beginning. So Eightfold Path is a graphic novel that's under the imprint Megascope, which is John Jennings' baby, I guess you could say, for Abrams, where they've so far published, I want to say, about 6 to 8 graphic novels so far. And mine will be out February 22nd. And so the idea of Eightfold Path, it's a graphic novel about 8 different stories. There's 2 writers on it. Dr. Charles Johnson. He wrote The Great Migration, if anyone's familiar with that would it be considered a children's book or young adult reading for scholar, like middle school? And so anyway, long story short, and then the other is Steve Barnes. He writes a lot for Hollywood. Both of these guys are academics, so pretty prestigious. So it's very flattering and honoring to be attached with them. Anyway, so this book, the idea of the Eightfold Path, 8 different characters, and they go to meet their mentor, I would say Antarctica, essentially. And there they converse and tell different stories while they're waiting on their mentor. And then by the end, that's when you get the great reveal. If anyone's unfamiliar with the Eightfold Path, as I was when I first started this book, the idea of life, it's like a trajectory, you go on a path. So we assume it's linear because we, born and then we die. So it's we think of things linearly. And so you think the path would go like this to ascend, right? But it's actually more like this. This is how life works. And then somehow you come out at the end and you come out scathed or unscathed with all your body parts, with none of your body parts. Anyway, so that's called life. So that's a quick and dirty on Eightfold Path. So yeah, that's that.
So I guess I also want everyone to introduce themselves too and kind of what they did on the book before we kind of start to talk about all the details. So
yeah, that's fine. We'll just start down there with Raeghan.
Hi, I'm Raeghan, and I inked and drew a little bit, but mostly colored on the Eightfold Path.
I'm Jeff. I did some layouts on Eightfold Path. I'm Johnny. I colored a story for the Eightfold Path.
I'm John. I did some drawing, inking, and coloring.
Hello, I'm... Can you hear me? No?
Yeah, it's pretty low. I would just project
Okay. I'm Kaycee. I did some...
everything.
Yeah, everyone pretty much did everything on the book. But yeah, we worked on it together.
See, I made this part.
I'm Sara Guzman. I worked on 2 parts of the book. I did 40 pages of thumbnails for 4,189, and then the other one was Savior.
I'm Taylor. I did layouts for the Gauntlet story.
Hi, I'm Mel. I did the coloring for the Nun story.
Hi, I'm Stacie. I did all the odd jobs. I did some coloring, some cleanup, whatnot, organization,
Some cooking.
cooking.
Driving.
Now that we know everyone and what they've worked on the book, could you talk a little bit about the format of the book and why it was appropriate to have so many different artists kind of work?
Yeah, so it might come across as a little confusing as why the heck we have all these artists. So what happens in the publishing world, and half of you or most of you know how this works, but just for clarity, what happens is the turnaround time is insane. So it's a 225-page graphic novel, and we had about 6 months to finish it. And right, Jeff? Impossible. Not one man could do this. Not one person could do it. Not one woman could do this unless you don't want to have a life and you want to go crazy. Anyway, so what happens is that instead of me like dealing with the ego and thinking, yeah, bravado, I could get this done, I was like, well, let me work and engage with my community, my friends, people I respect, so forth. And so what happens is that the reason they put me on the book is because I have this ability to draw a lot of different ways. And so that's what we were like keying in on. So each story is a different style. A lot of it harkens back to EC Comics. So it won't, when you see the work, it won't exactly look like that, but it has the hallmarks and the tropes of EC with a little bit of inspiration. So, oh yeah, I'm glad we have some of that up there. So a lot of the inspirations came from like Wally Wood, Alex Toth, who else? Jack Davis, you know, all your classic EC guys. Harvey Kurtzman, a lot of Harvey Kurtzman. Anyone else I'm forgetting, guys? Artists that we were referring back to? Oh yeah, Basil Wolvington. That was a great one. Thank you for the amplification. So that's in general. When we go through these slides, you'll see a bunch of different styles, and that's where we key in on all these different artists here. So that's what we'll explore.
So I guess I'm interested in how all the other artists kind of like came to this project and what that process was like. How did you come to find the Eightfold Path? I guess it sounds very transcendental, but yeah.
Actually, we'll just take it from the beginning. So Jeff, if you want to key in on that, because it kind of started with me and you with the layouts. And then, so if you want to talk about that, and then we'll evolve from that over to the other artist.
So Bryan contacted me and related what the challenge was, and the way I saw it was basically it was a heist. It was somebody putting together a crime, which I'm for.
Ocean's 11.
Yeah. Right. So Bryan was the Clooney.
There you go.
I was Don Cheadle.
Yesterday we were X-Men. Now we're
I speak in metaphors. But yeah, laid out the challenge, and you know, I was at a good time to help out, and so we just sort of dove in without knowing exactly how it was going to go, and then Bryan just kept assembling the team, and which is, you know, it's a bunch of all-stars. It's killers.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of amazing to watch. But so then I guess so. I did some of the layouts, and then got cooking, and then I think it was
Over to Sarah and Taylor.
yeah.
Okay, so back in, was it January of this year? Around January? No, it was February.
Okay.
So in February, I was contacted because they need to get 80 pages of thumbnails between Taylor and I done. And so we...
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. And it was about to...
It was Taylor's birthday.
It was Taylor's birthday. It was about to be Valentine's Day when the deadline was hitting. The deadline was, I think, Valentine's Day. And I'm like, I got to get it done a day before. It's my favorite holiday.
Right.
I don't have plans. I'm just going to live it up. So we split it up between the two of us. And so my two stories were interesting because 4189 is a futuristic society where no one can die. And they're all just manufacturing for the society as a whole. And so the two main characters are lovers that are like, we want to die, that's the ultimate kink. So they have microsynths in their bodies so they can't die. Anytime they try to hurt themselves, it doesn't work. So they have to find backdoor alleys where people in death brothels can give them some pills that they can take. And so the story kind of goes from there. And there was a lot of scenes where I had to figure out PG-13 sex scenes for thumbnails, and I was just like, can't really pull out the Kama Sutra, but I guess still make it interesting. So, thank you. It was interesting trying to find a balance of my personal thumbnails and then having to make it for a team that has to draw on top of that, which I hadn't really had to do. So I think I made them a little over-detailed, but at least it was a good jumping point for you guys to go off of and figure out what you want to do on top of that. And then the other story, Savior, was about a society of humans where there's only a few million left living in a cave, and AI is sort of destroying humanity, and they're like, how can we combat this and save society? So instead of using science to create AI, they gather a lot of religious leaders to create AI based on spirituality, and it sort of goes from there. So that's a little bit of what I worked on, and I'll pass it over to Taylor.
So the story I worked on was called The Gauntlet, and it was kind of about like doing acts of kindness and it passing along through like people's lives. And there was a lot of, so it was like in the script it didn't specify, it said kung fu or karate. So I was just trying to figure out how to do a bunch of different like poses, action poses, and it was very dialogue and like exposition heavy. So like it was kind of like a puzzle trying to like fit in all the details that they wanted within each panel, but also like fitting the text in as well. So that was like the main challenge of working on that story.
Should we pivot over to the process of the, should we keep going with the inking and the coloring? Yeah. Okay, cool. And then I think, well, we could pivot over to you, Kaycee, because you haven't said much. Plus you could talk about the Gauntlet that you and Taylor worked on.
So Bryan had contacted me. We had previously worked on the White Castle Coca-Cola 100th anniversary project. We put out those cups at White Castle. I don't know if you guys have gotten them. I think they're out.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, they're out of print.
They're out of print right now. But yeah, I'm an animator, so we worked on the animation for that. And so while I was working my animation job, Bryan contacted me like, we got to get this comic done. And I'm like, oof. The animation is pretty much just hard labor, and I'm coming to draw comics every night after working full day. But it was fun. I mean, that's the whole point of the process, you know, getting to hang out with all these people and make comics, which is one of the other passions I have outside of animating. So we came in, I would come in every night, and we would ink the pages, try to figure out how the character designs and everything work out, and you know, try to integrate everything into the story. We went back and forth. We had like this kind of interesting process where we rotate the pages to ensure that everything works out seamlessly, everything looks uniform, because obviously everyone draws with a different shorthand in their own style. But me being familiar with animation, there's a pipeline where you hand out the character designs and the layouts and all the, all the process of how to draw the characters to all the animators working on it, and everyone tries to figure it out. Everyone tries to follow that guideline. So we did this sort of the same process where we hand off the pages to each other, and we rotate it, we ink, and we add our little elements, try to keep it unique to each other, to ourselves, and also make it uniform so there's some sort of unity in the project as well. And you notice in the pages that I think it comes together pretty well. So we sort of worked on all of that together.
Do you want to speak specifically, Kaycee, to the Gauntlet? Because that's the main one you managed.
Okay, for the Gauntlet, so I had Taylor's layouts to work with, and they were pretty detailed for me to go off of. Bryan had already had some of the character designs drawn, so I had to figure out some of the ancillary characters, just some of the background guys, some of those tiny dudes in the top left, try to figure out how they could look unique and still recognizable. So we figured that part out, and we had to come up with the environment, and also, who was the artist we were trying to emulate in this? I don't remember.
I can't recall either.
But yeah, we had a lot of EC Comic artists. Thank you. We had a lot of EC Comic artists as inspiration to pull from, so we just sort of took a little identifying factors of their style, such as line quality, shape language, stuff like that, and we put it into the comic. And I try to keep, I don't remember the artist we referenced for this one, but we try to keep that idea. One of them, there's so many. But we try to keep that same idea in here with the line quality and the character designs and even the dynamic action in the scenes. This one was karate heavy, so Taylor's layouts were really helpful because, I watch a lot of karate movies and kung fu movies, but I had to really research and see what actually was going on.
Yeah, Taylor had put together like a mood board in along with her thumbnails.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, and we were looking at that quite a bit. Because when you guys started inking this story, I remember Bryan was sick that night, so it was just John and Kaycee down in our kitchen.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, guys.
Yeah, I sort of had to get into that Bushido mindset and had to draw it out to bring out that the path. So yeah, we and this story in particular is about, like Taylor had said, community and putting together something and passing on knowledge to the next generation. So it was pretty important for me, and we did have that conversation with, was it Scott?
With Charles. Steve, thank you, Steve Barnes.
Yeah, we had that conversation with Steve Barnes where he sort of told us how to insert the pathos into the comic, into this particular story, because it's about, one guy who's gone through a lot in his life, and he's trying to make the next generation go through, or not make the same mistakes he's made, and, it's sort of a self-sacrificing situation. So he gave us some inspiration and some, just overall thoughts to ponder on while we were making this particular story. So I think we tried to insert that into the story as well. And I think it came out pretty successful from my point of view.
I think so too. John, you want to talk about what you did, buddy?
Yeah, sure. Oh my gosh. I'll just stay real far back here. Yeah, so I got involved. I'll kind of never forget, excuse the potty talk, I was pooping, and Bryan texted me, which was kind of a good place to be, because as I started sort of going through the messages, Bryan was like, yeah, okay, so I've got this big project, I need your help. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, well, it's a 200-page graphic novel, and we need to get it done in 3 months. And I was like, okay. And then you started to explain that sort of page rotation process. You and Kaycee started with the inking, and I didn't really get it over the messages. And I was like, do you really want me involved in this project? You want how many people to ink these pages, and we're supposed to make it look the same and get it done? Okay. I was very nervous going into it. But yeah, that the process that we developed, just rotating the pages, was brilliant in my opinion, because we each got to have our own voice active in all the pages, and it kept it exciting and fun and didn't make it grunt work. And
Could you guys describe what that page rotation process means because our audience might not know.
Yeah.
You guys know it intimately, but.
yeah, so we would each have one page in front of us that was either, it was like a blown up page of thumbnails or a page that was penciled over, and we would each have a page, and we would, set like a timer.
15 minutes.
Yeah. And so we would all work on the section with the sort of defined style. And then
I was a slave driver, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, we're rotating these pages every 15 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, that's where the seamlessness really came from. It's just, if finish the line you're on, and then the page has to move, and then you just kind of pick up where it left off.
Let me just chime in real quick, because Jeff's going to give me crap if I don't reiterate or correct this. So it was like the idea is that the line stays active. So it's like 15 minutes, you don't really get time to commit. You have to go really fast. So it's about speed at that point. So it comes back around. Yeah. Oh, we would get maybe about 6 to 10 pages done in a couple hours. I'll show you the technique later, Jeff.
So Jeff had a question that he wanted to ask you guys before you.
Yeah, well, it's a question, and also it's a observation, a comment.
Yeah, you were there,
like
Jeff.
so the one of the amazing things about the whole process, so there's this whole thing about getting the work done, doing it quickly, it was effective, and all this, but the one of the things that was amazing to me is the support that it took to make that happen. So that's people cooking meals. It's letting people take a nap when if they're tired. You got hourly cleaning house. It's the all of the support that went into the emotional support that went into creating a platform or an arena where that kind of work could happen was astounding to me to just to see it, and that's credit to you and Rachel and everybody that was on the team. It was I've never seen that kind of support, physical, emotional, and Wally the support dog. Shout out to Wally. Yeah.
If anyone was wondering, my dog Wallace was there.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, we're rotating the pages.
Oh, yeah, rotating the pages. And something else about that too with the page rotation. If there was ever a point where maybe someone didn't feel comfortable drawing a certain thing on the page, then it would make it around the rotation. And I think there was even a point where we were kind of designating somebody would do faces or somebody was on backgrounds.
Yeah.
And if there wasn't ever, if you ran out of that work, then you could fill in the holes anywhere else. But yeah, it was brilliant. It kind of really, really opened my eyes up to the idea that, with what Jeff was saying, if you can create this kind of supportive environment, then, and with this process, that long form comics like this can be cake. They could be really, really great.
Yeah, it was definitely a walk in the park because it was able to maintain. But at the end, Raeghan, can you talk about the last week? Because the book was due June 1st, and we ended up I turned it in June 7th, which I still consider a success. In the publishing world, that's great still. But Raeghan, you and I were in the trenches. I was burnt out. I don't even think I could work, and you were there just grinding it out for us.
I feel like that is probably the most value that I brought for the team or whatever, is that I feel like I was really excited to be there. And I had what he was talking about, what Jeff was talking about, with the support and everything like that. From the very beginning, I felt super supported. I came on the team because Stacie was calling me and she was telling me about working on it. She was like, you need to come through or whatever and see what you can do to help. And the first day I was there, we were working at Amina Robinson's house, and Mossy just threw a page down in front of me and some pens and was like, well, you're inking now and stuff like that. And it's funny because y'all were like, oh, this is the process of like we're doing something where we're switching them off like after every 15 minutes or whatever. But nobody like said anything to me like it wasn't weird. Like you guys are talking about it like it's something that you came up, but like when I got there, they were like, oh yeah, this is just what we do or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. Right, and I was like apprehensive because I don't really like, my normal style of drawing is like pretty static and pretty like crosshatchy and stuff like that. And it was just like, no, you do this now, this is what you do now or whatever. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, the last week, I just felt like everybody put their head down and we were just like, listening to a lot of music and like just kind of taking, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of drum and bass.
One night it was 8 hours of Michael Jackson.
That was the best night.
Casey's a great dancer, by the way.
I taught Kaycee how to dance. I'm just kidding. No, I taught Kaycee one thing. I forgot what I was like talking about.
I was wondering
yeah, go ahead.
if Johnny, Mel, and Stacie could maybe talk a little bit about the color process, because you guys worked pretty, like the stories that you did are pretty definitive in terms of color, and I'll pull them up while you're talking.
Yeah, my story was like a space. It was like a space war, like a sci-fi kind of thing. So I used a lot of colors that I don't usually use when I draw on my own. So that was pretty fun. There was a lot of like saturated colors, that kind of thing. So that was pretty fun.
Can you talk about where you got the palette?
Oh yeah, and there's like an old comic called Space Hawk that I stole a lot of colors from. So yeah, that was how I went through that process.
And Mel, remember I was trying to explain to you, like, I don't want any color in this. I was like, just blue and gray.
Yeah. So, I mean, I worked on The Nun, which is, it's a really dark story. I think there's zombies. But I really like the layout of it, and I love this main character. I think she's really cool. But yeah, that's what Bryan told me, just kind of make it very kind of grim looking. So I did like a monochrome with like a couple of spots of color. And I like doing the gold in the hair. I remember that specifically. Yeah. I was also like, I had Walking Dead in the background while I was doing it.
Was it hard to pull back, Mel, with the coloring? Or is it pretty straightforward for you?
I kind of enjoyed it. I used to work in black and white a lot because I didn't know how to use color back in the day. So it was actually really fun. Yeah, I liked it. I don't know.
Stacie, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. This is actually my first time doing anything with comic books. I had asked Mossy for help varnishing a painting, and he was like, so, we got this thing. It'll be great for you. And he explained it to me as it was going to be super simple because it was duotone, and so I didn't have to worry too much about color palette, but it was actually, in some ways, really challenging for me to figure out how to make two colors interesting. So there's a lot of trial and error. Well, obviously there are highlights and shadows too, but yeah, so I probably worked a little bit slower than he would have liked me, but it was, I don't know, it was a fun experiment because I think that's the only one that's two-tone like that.
Yeah, I would say that in regards to the Gauntlet, I would say this is the one that I kind of had like the least imprint on, because you guys are probably wondering like, well, what the hell did you do then, Bryan? Everybody else did all the work. I just sat back with my legs kicked up like. No, so the process, I'll tell you guys what I did, but I would like just to speak on this real quick, that I'm really proud of this story, The Gauntlet, because it's the longest one in the book. And it's, man, that was really exhausting for us, John. Like, drawing it, and we burnt out Kaycee on it because I had him leading it. And so, with the combination of Taylor, Kaycee, and then Stacie, like, it was cool for me to kind of see, like, without much of my input, except I decided the duotone that we're going to do it in that color scheme and everything. So I would say it was really cool for me just to be a spectator to see the three talents on that book. And like I said, everybody worked on it, fingers on it, you know, inking and stuff, but I just want to key in on those three to show how cool that collaboration is. So the book I mainly worked on was everything. So basically they were there, when were you guys there? Monday through Thursday, John? Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, sometimes Friday. And so I was just working on it basically around the clock. So weekends, morning, night. A lot of it was going back through editing, setting things up for that day. So that means doing layouts or cleaning things up, constant editing, and then drawing pages. So if you look at, I would say, yeah, this is a good page, I guess. I was thinking, do we have anything from the barbecue? Yeah. Okay, so this right here is the barbecue story. This is kind of like how the book was supposed to look originally, like this level of detail and like, you know, I was gonna like be like, yeah, watch Bryan Moss, the greatest cartoonist ever. I'm gonna show Jeff how great I can draw. I'm coming for you, Jeff. And so it's like, then Abrams called me and was like, hey, can we push the book up? You know, can we get it out sooner? And I was like, well, yeah, but the quality is gonna drop a little bit because I just can't produce at that level in that amount of time. It's impossible. So this is kind of like, this is the first story in the book, and it kind of shows you the direction it was going. But the goal was to, how do I sustain and keep the quality up with the process? And that's when I was like, oh, well, let me hire all my friends. And then that's what happened. So this is kind of like a preview of where I was romanticizing the book. And then if we go back to that one, Rachel, not that, the other story with the, yeah, that one. Okay, so this right here, actually, can you go back to the other one? So this is a kind of like the process. This is something that Jeff and I did when we were still like figuring it out. And what this is like, usually I'll draw on multiple pieces of paper and then scan it and put together. And it's based off of Jeff's layout. So I would say that Jeff, what I want to speak about Jeff is that the goal was to make everything different. And that's really hard to do when you're doing the thumbnails and the storyboards because you're transcribing. And for what Jeff did from like the scope of the nun, what we're able to get out of Mel and everyone else that worked on it, and then come up with something like the Gauntlet, like that's kind of like awesome, you know? So I'm really like proud of the team for that creativity. Can we go to the next one? Yeah, so then this is what it looks like put together. And that's after coloring. So this is something I would do during the day, like color key things like this. So you'll see, and then that kind of leads into the style that we would work in that story. So that's kind of like the process on my end. So it was more just like pumping out the creativity, making it different, putting these guys in spaces to where they were comfortable so that they could create.
So, I mean, this process kind of happened so quickly, but I think it changed all of us kind of going through this. And I'm wondering, what did you all, and this is a question for everyone, what did you guys learn about making comics? And then how did this change your approach to making comics?
We'll start the newbie down on that end. Stacie's like, I learned not to go back into this industry ever again.
Yes, I learned that if you want to make comics, and you need to be very dedicated and committed to it. But it was really cool for me. Like, I am an artist. I like trying different styles. Watercolor, oil painting is typically what I do. But working digitally and seeing the process was really cool for me. So something that I could potentially try out, maybe not making a full comic book, but just another form of art that I can use.
I was actually in Michigan, so I didn't get subject to the assembly line treatment. So honestly, I would say the coloring was very like fun and relaxing, and I spent a lot of time on it. So, and I had like another comics commission that I was doing with coloring, so I was just coloring. It was really fun.
Kind of what Sara was saying earlier, just like learning how much detail or pulling back was needed to like be able to communicate like what's in your mind to somebody else. And that's kind of why I did the mood board thing as well, which was more for me, but I thought it would help convey like, cause like I was just drawing like glorified stick people basically. So like conveying like more like mood that like didn't necessarily need to be like on the page.
And then for my thumbnails, I'd say usually I like to draw physically, ink physically, then scan things in, but with a tight deadline of like 2 weeks and like 40 pages of thumbnails, I was like, I don't have time to scan. And they said they would even scan it for us, and I'm like, that would just take up their time. So I had to adapt and try to do everything digitally instead, which worked out better. It gave me more options to easily size things and change up the line art and whatnot. And I thought that was really great. It's not really something I do very often, but it was what was needed to help move things along at a speedy pace. And I'm just grateful to be a part of it.
For me, since my background is mostly animation, and I have loved comics for a long time, my dream was to always make comics, but somehow I got roped into animation. And it's a very interesting difference because animation and comics are both sequential forms of art, but animation, there's a lot of drawing that goes into it, but with comics, you have to decide the drawing that goes into the panel. So there's sometimes in the Gauntlet where I'm like, should I draw him before he punches the guy, after he punches the guy, while he's punching? Like, you gotta figure out you gotta decide what drawing to pick. And essentially it helped me, identify the important parts, the important aspects of the story and highlight those because that's what the audience needs to, absorb, not the, whatever frivolous things are happening on the side. Because in animation, there's a lot of secondary action that you include to make things pretty. But with comics, it's got to be the drawing. And so that's what I've learned. And it's also it translates into my work in animation where I can finally see how to pull back and limit the amount of work that I put into animation. And so, very eye-opening process for me.
I would say for me to make it quick so that everyone else can speak, more of a leadership role. I had to learn how to obviously pull back the ego. I don't really have too much of an ego. I'm 40, so I'm kind of burnt out. So that's kind of dissipated. But at the same time, it's keeping things together. So there's days where I was sick. Kaycee and John were working. I don't even know what I had. It was just flu, maybe?
Stress.
Yeah, stress, right? And because it's on my end, I have to get money. I have to source money. So I'm sourcing money also during this time to pay all these guys. And I pay them fairly, so it's not easy. So I have to maintain that and then also lead a team. And I don't say leading a team in a condescending way. I'm saying in the sense of being humbled enough to where I am at their will. So it's if Kaycee says I can't do today, then I have to be okay, no problem, and eat that, or not be freak out. So creating a space to where everyone's comfortable and can work and do their best. And then also, the point of this panel is to pull back that veil of the auteur, the idea that, yes, I made this comic completely on my own and I am the greatest. Honestly, anyone, if you have time, yeah, that's cute, but the reality is when dealing with publishers, deadlines, companies, even your own personal work in your life, it just isn't the reality. So it's kind of pulling back the veil and showing you guys the reality and the discipline about what goes into making a book. And so that's what I took away from this.
Which is part of comics history.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say in a way this felt like a new way to make a book, but also it's that's from day one in comics. That's the Will Eisner. Yeah. Having a studio with somebody who's leading the team. That's
Yeah, some a good example that's like Will Eisner when he was doing what was it, Spirit when he was in space. Like I didn't really like that part, but like Wally Wood was inking that, and like that's like incredible, right? A young Wally Wood inking Eisner. So like, but you have to dig for that kind of information a lot of times, you know. So why not just put it out there up front, you know?
Yeah. And why it seems like especially through the 90s, I think there was this narrative that like creating comics means that you're a lonely soul in an attic, like, you know, hunched over with horrible posture at a table first. You know, it's like it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. Yeah.
You're saying you don't have to be a nerd?
No, nerds are great. Look at these nerds.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Clown pants on. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that was a massive takeaway for me is, you know, going into self-publishing work, you know, I think it's way too easy to just put yourself in a closet and just do your work. And that can be killer for some people, but again, it is kind of cute if that's what you want to do and you have the time for it. You know, and again, I think a big takeaway for me from this is that I personally wasn't considering for a long time doing any long-form work. I was like, well, seems like a big undertaking. I'm not trying to pull the sword out of the rock right now. You know, but this whole process kind of unveiled that like I can hang out with my friends and make a 225-page book, and like a killer amount of time. And there was some stress. We had moments.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But mostly like, you know,
I've been crying in a closet sometimes.
No one was too broken. I hope.
Well, I've been making comics by myself, like for my whole life. So it was kind of new seeing like a group of people working together. I never seen that before. So that's kind of what I learned, that's a possibility or a way to do things, like as a team. I only colored, but like I watched everybody working together, and that was pretty cool to see.
So I guess like my takeaways were, I had a couple. Like one was when they were talking about, you know, letting go of ego to draw, to get the job done. That was something that like I really labor over my personal work, and that was something that I kind of learned, and it was really cool. I was like, I think the second day I was working, Mossy was like taking people around on a tour of Amina's house, and he like glances over me. He's like in the middle of a sentence, he like glances over at me. He's like, "You're done. That's enough," or whatever. Like stop like noodling on this page. Like you've got the idea down and stuff like that. And so I've really taken that with me to after this project. And the other thing that I really learned was that like everybody's talked about being on a team and how cool it was, and how supportive it was. And like the same as everybody else, like I've done a lot of stuff on my own or whatever, but like I think this team is special because like there are things that I really didn't think, like you're kind of taught to, you know, be really self-sufficient, and there were things that like people went out of their way to help me with. Like I've got like high anxiety and stuff like that, and like for example, Stacie would bring me to work most days or whatever. You think that most people would be like, listen, that's a liability. Like you're gonna bring our team down if you have like stuff like that. I had like a anxiety attack one time at Mossy's house, and he it was like the end of the day, so he drove me home, and then he you know, drove me back the next day or whatever to get my car that was there. So it was like it wasn't like fake, like, you know, it wasn't like kind of like, well, we're gonna be nice to you because you're producing work for us and stuff like that. It's like we're all pretty much friends. So, and we know that we've talked about. He's like, well, I don't want to speak for everybody. I wasn't part of all of everything.
John's like, oh yeah.
But we've talked about like doing more projects together, or like relying on each other, like for like the future and stuff like that.
No. I
So.
don't think I'll ever do a book by myself. Because I rather draw my friends.
I got one other thing to say about what I learned, you know, individually from working on this book, is that I'm really good at drawing cops beating the shit out of people. Because the book is very violent, and I got to draw cops stomping on heads, cops. Sorry. So, yeah, sponges were cool, but yeah, no, I'm really good. Like, if anyone wants like
Cops being.
it is violence, just drawn violence. Like, I discovered like things blowing up, whatever. Like I think I.
It's the year of violence.
Yeah, I never got
Yeah.
other questions, but Jeff is really good at special effects. Like, he could draw a sponge. A sponge is really hard to draw. He's mastered.
Let's
the
see some
sponge.
sponges.
I
Do we
can
guys? We have some sponges?
There's our sponge characters. Jeff drew all the sponges.
Yeah. Yeah, sponges and violence. Like, I got it. I got that. Yes, please. I'm available. So.
Okay, so I will turn it over to our audience if anyone has any questions for the team. Please ask them now. You can raise your hand. I'll call on you.
I have so many questions.
Jeff's gonna try to steal our process.
I'm paying attention. I wonder if I could take a page and I'm just gonna write a page for 15 minutes, do the next one.
Yeah.
Come back around. That's kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm so glad I came here this morning. You guys are very impressive, and I don't know how you got that. Even with this process, how you did that many pages in that short time is astonishing. I can't wait to see the book. So
Yeah.
see how this all came together. But it looks really great. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Thank
Yeah. I love that you guys all just got together and did that. That's so cool. That's like, I do miss, like, I worked in animation for a while too, Kaycee. And the one thing I really miss about that is that group dynamic where you can talk to each other, actually look at what everybody else is doing. But, okay, so here's my question. So at what point, okay, you started on paper in the beginning, you said you were going to, but then you would like switch, you must have scanned it in. And then was everybody just working on Cintiqs or something? Or?
Oh,
Yeah.
I want to answer this question actually. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
So,
Grab a mic
okay, let me, sorry.
and maybe repeat the question.
So you're asking like how it went, like the process from like point A to point. We have a finished page. Yes. So it began, Jeff printed out the entire script, 2 of them, and brought them over to our house. Jeff and I read the scripts. And pretty much every night I would come down and I would be like, okay, here's the story that you're working on, right? And then they'd go through the process of like, they would have layouts made, they would ink over the layouts, and then I would scan them. And then, yeah, light boxing for the pen and ink, and then I would scan those. And then we kind of circulated everything for the colors. And you guys can speak more to that because we did have like a couple different processes that we use for colors, but just to like summarize the whole process, that was kind of, yeah.
So we had about 4 light boxes set up. So this all took place at Amina Robinson's house. I was living there at the time. So we had this huge table, John, Kaycee, myself, and then Raeghan jumped in. I can't remember who else did some inking. Did you do some inking at all, Stacie? No. So then we would just light box and run all the pieces, 15 minutes in circulation. The goal was to hit, I was like doing hardcore. I was like, how many pages did I want a day, Kaycee?
You wanted like 8 a day.
Yeah, 8 to 10 a day. And we were doing between 6, and sometimes we would get like 12 to 14. That's when we bring in John. Because me and Kaycee were doing, I was like, this isn't fast enough. So John came in, and then that ramped up the process. Then by the time Raeghan gets there, we're pivoting to coloring. We inked the entire book first because they wanted the book in so they could set up the lettering. So we scanned it in and sent it to them in black and white so they could start doing the lettering. And that was also part of the layouts. So then when we switched over to coloring, that's when we used iPads, Procreate, and then Photoshop and Cintiqs. So we just had screens set up everywhere.
And everything was in Google Drive, right? So
Yeah.
we're just plucking files and dropping them back in Google Drive.
Yeah.
Well, I have one more. I have a lot of questions. I have one more I'll ask him before I shut up. So who wrote it? Did I miss that?
Yeah, it's okay. So Dr. Charles
Johnson.
Johnson,
Stephen Barnes.
and then Stephen Barnes. Dr. Charles Johnson, he wrote The Great Migration, and then Steve is a writer, academic, and writes for Hollywood. So like worked on Star Trek, stuff like that. Some TV shows.
And Charles was a cartoonist.
Balloons and panels, or?
Yeah, they gave us the script. They had a letterer. Abrams hired a letterer.
Okay.
So yeah. I wanted to do the lettering, but
Yeah.
it's probably too much work.
Yeah, at least we got the titles though.
Yeah, we got the title, but we did the titles and everything. So, as an example, that Abrams did the graphic designing for the cover. Can we go back to the cover real quick?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying
Oh, you're fine. No worries. So yeah, so example, the cover, and the page to the right, Abrams doing all the graphic work, and then the coloring and all illustrations all on us.
I do have, Jeff actually lettered a title for us that I really like, so I put it in this presentation.
Yeah, so this actually, guys, is the original pitch for the book that I designed. That was the initial cover and everything. Jeff and I worked on that. We worked closely together. And so the font and the design was all by Jeff, but they rejected it because they said it wasn't literal, like it couldn't communicate. I think it reads well. I like it. Yeah, I think it looks cool. So that will probably be like some back matter or something in the book. Any other questions? Anyone?
Christian and then Han.
So my question is, I mean, this is really impressive, like work that you put together this team. You came up with this entire collaborative process, to turn something around. In just a few short months, have you considered like turning this into like some sort of like semi-permanent studio? Hopefully, like not with the deadline or anything like that, but turning it into kind of a semi-permanent collaborative process.
Yeah, so the question was from Christian if we are turning this into a studio or a semi-collaborative process. And to answer that question directly, yeah, because I'm in contract with Abrams. So my promissory to the crew is that my next book they'll be working on as well if they want to. And then obviously creative input is valued in this process as well. I'm not overbearing, so, it's like, because I value creativity. I don't care about money. So the idea is that what I took away from this was to create a distribution system in the next 5 years in order to celebrate the other artists and what they make. But also, yeah, we're going to run the helm and just, keep collaborating and keep doing this just because it works. So why change something, So the idea was like, once I finally got a major book deal was to bring in the community, bring in work, and that's the whole goal, is just to bring jobs to Columbus personally. And yeah, so I value the team. That's my personal thoughts. Anybody else?
That's just a comment on that. Like this team came together for this project, but the team existed before the project, right? And it's because of you. Like you put that it's your community. It's you put all these people together, and so when there's a job to do, the team already existed, right?
Yeah.
You're the new guy, but not you. It's you. but it's like, I mean, that's incredible to me. It's incredible that it's like when a job like that comes up, it's like you already knew who to call, right? And that's amazing, And like, I mean, that's I think it's fitting that the project started in Amina's house because that's the soul of the city. Like, not to be corny about it, but it's like, but that's what it is. It's the creative heart of Columbus, as far as I'm concerned.
No, totally. No, thank you for that, Jeff. John, you're gonna have to give him some clapbacks before this is over. You have to kick his butt.
I don't know. He's really good at drawing violence.
He likes being heroin, John.
Han, you had a question?
Yeah, so one, I really like that you talked about the ego of the artist, because I think in comics especially.
Oh, it's rampant.
Yeah. But I guess my question is, like, time constraints aside, if you didn't have this crazy turnaround, do you think that more books should be made like this?
Oh my my gosh. Okay, sorry that I'm so dominating right now. I apologize, guys. Yeah, because the problem is that 90% of the books that come out are terrible. Because I'm speaking as an artist, so it's like I can see the problems, right? Because I can read behind the veil. So it's like I could tell they didn't have much time. The end of the book was a burnout, whatever the case may be. Coloring is always the afterthought with comics. So they do this, I'm not gonna cuss, but I want to. It's like this crappy, just drop in color thing, opposed to actually committing to the coloring, because it's like an afterthought. So yes, if more people were more transparent and did this process, because it's innovation, so that's the whole point. And so if more people honored this process or attempted it or did it, it's way more gratifying, financially I took a hit, but like I said, it's not about that, because the idea is that we have work coming in. I don't mind taking a pay cut in order for all of my friends to be celebrated and eat. And I don't say it in a condescending way, they feed themselves. And a lot of them, and just to rally this point, Mel, is it okay if I bring up the thing? So, well, actually, you can talk about it if you want to. Are you comfortable, or do you want me to talk about it? Or no? Okay, and then you can chime in. So Mel, during this whole process, Mel got sick. And we're talking seizures, seriously sick. And I talked to John, I talked to the crew, and everybody here donated to keep Mel. They donated their money, their last paychecks, to Mel in order for her hospital bills. So it's not a joke, the team is the team. And that's how committed we are, that no one's left behind, right? So, and now Mel's here. She's recovering, she's doing better. I try to be as formal as possible about it, Mel. So you can add or chime in. But yeah, so that goes back to that Amina Robinson thing you were talking about, Jeff. Being in that house. Anybody else? Sorry.
I just want to say thank you very much. Because, yeah, that's legitimately why I'm here, because I had a lot of medicine and just shit that I had to pay for. And so, yeah, just on the path to recovery right now and trying to get back into it. So that's it.
So I think that's all the time that we have, but thank you guys for sharing this process with everyone. I think it's really unique and innovative and inspiring, so I appreciate your time. And thank you guys for listening.